Hi, this is Elaine Starling. I'm the host of Why 5% Succeed. This is a show where we talk about the tips, tools, tactics, and techniques that can help any entrepreneur or small business owner galvanize their business. Now, one of the things that your clients really want your help with, there's just two things they want your help with. The first is to manage their fear. Fear is our big motivator, and it's not a bad thing. It's something we all need to learn how to leverage and really use as a huge momentum builder. The second thing that your clients want help with is managing focus, maintaining that focus, because there are so many distractions, so many challenges and projects that you have to get done. It's really challenging to maintain that sense of focus. So that's where your clients need your help. Now, believe it or not, you need help with that stuff too. There's this story that you've got in your head about who you are and what you do. And it begins very first thing when you wake up in the morning, and it's a story that you tell yourself throughout the day. It's a really important story because it gives you the guidelines you need to live your life. It allows you to manage your own fear. But what happens when you're ready to grow? What happens when you've got a really big goal, something massive, something beyond your experience? How do you break out of your old story and create a new story about who you are so that you can be more capable and more resourceful? Capable is about your internal resources, how you see yourself, your skill sets, how you think about who you are. And then resourceful is about looking outside yourself to the different tools, experts, resources that are available to you. And everything is always there for you. It's always an opportunity for you to decide to be a little bit more capable and resourceful. Well, have I got somebody who's incredibly capable and resourceful to chat with us today? I'm so delighted to have Akshay Nanavati joining us. Akshay is an amazing guy. It's so much that I don't even know quite where to start. He's a Marine Corps veteran. He's an explorer. He's an entrepreneur. This guy has done something I don't know anybody else who's done this. He decided to drag a 190-pound sled over 350 miles across Greenland. And he's got this commitment to run across every single country. Is that right, Akshay?
That's the plan.
So tell us about your motivation. Tell us about how you came up with that vision and why that was important to you.
Sure. So, after joining the Marines, I really got into outdoor sports. Well, actually, let me step back for a second. Before even joining the Marines, about a year and a half in high school, I squandered my life with drugs and actually lost 2 friends to that lifestyle. And I managed to find a way out and join the Marines. So as a result of once I got out of that lifestyle, I needed to find a more positive way to channel that energy, get a positive high, if you will. So that's when I got into outdoor sports. I mean, I went into, you name it, skydiving, rock climbing, mountain climbing, scuba diving, ice diving. I mean, you name it, I was in it. And so I really got into it, actively then. And then I went to Iraq, came back from Iraq, and then, I had a corporate job for a little while. And then after that, I quit my job to do the skiing across Greenland. And after that, I came back and started building my business. And business was going good. I was happy. Things were nothing to complain about. But I realized something was kind of missing. I had stopped being who I truly believe I was, that adventurer, that explorer, pushing my mind and body to its limits. And this was after Greenland. Since then, I hadn't sort of done much like that again. So I needed to find something to inspire me, to trigger me, to have me wake up every day in the morning, like ready to go for a run because I had a reason to do it, something to give me a clarity of purpose for the rest of my life. And so I decided to come up with something insane that would meet all my personal criteria for my own life, that is, push my own mind, body, and spirit to its limits and beyond, see how far I could test it. I love traveling. I've already been to 45, probably 50 countries now, and I love exploring the world and the people on it, meeting new people. And I wanted to serve the planet, do something meaningful. So the manner in which I could do it was through my own, everybody's got kind of their art form in which they excel at. Some people are good at sports, some are good at, coaching, and all kinds of various things people are good at. And for me, it was outdoor adventure sports, and obviously my business is coaching, but I decided to come up with this crazy thing to run from border to border across every country in the world. And in service, I actually started a nonprofit foundation as well, and the kind of goal of it is to better the planet and the lives of the people on it through this endeavor. So and it meets all my criteria. It gives me something to focus on for the rest of my life, and it's really exciting. It's terrifying, but it's exciting as well.
I love that you say that. I love that you say that because so often one of the biggest challenges that people have with their business is they're playing small.
Yeah.
They're playing safe. And in reality, your purpose in life is to continually learn and grow and expand and become.
Exactly.
And you go through this cycle, right? You go through the unconscious incompetence, then you develop conscious incompetence. So unconscious incompetence, you don't know what you don't know.
Yep.
But you're interested in the topic.
Mm-hmm.
So then when you learn a little bit more about the topic, you have conscious incompetence. You know you don't know.
Yep.
That's the problem, right? And then from that, you go to conscious competence, where if you work really hard and you focus very strong,
Mm-hmm.
you can make progress and you can actually get the outcome you want. But the focus has to be there. It's not the final step, which is unconscious competence, when you really develop that level of mastery. Yep. So that you can just do things in your sleep, you don't even think about it. And one of the challenges that a lot of professionals have, whatever you do, whatever you're good at, mm-hmm. you develop that level of unconscious competence. Yep. You are coming at it from such a high level that you just kind of, by default, think that everybody thinks the way you do, and they don't. And so when you first encounter somebody, they're coming at it from their primitive brain. They're coming at it from a perspective of, they want to know, is this relevant to me? Mm-hmm. Does this have anything to do with what I'm working on? Most things don't, and so you ignore it. But some things might be sort of interesting, but they're complex, and they're complicated. And guess what? When you come from that unconscious competence state, you tend to make things really complicated because people they're not speaking your language yet. They're not as far along as you are. Mm-hmm. But if you make it complicated, you scare people away. So it's really critical to understand how people need to hear the information. How can you connect with people where they are so that you can bring them to where they want to be? And one of the things that I've noticed, I'm sure you're familiar with this, is a problem with a lot of mental obstacles. I honestly think that 95% of the problem is right here.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
Right?
It's all up there, yeah.
I think there are probably 3 critical areas that tend to be the big barriers. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I would love to get your perspective on it, but I think the first one is limiting beliefs about yourself. Mm-hmm. The second one is limiting beliefs about other people's motivations. And the third one is limiting beliefs about the situation. You might think you're set up to fail. Yeah, yeah. What's your perspective? Because, I mean, you're setting yourself up for a pretty giant goal to run across every single country. That's massive. How do you wrap your head around your personal limitations, other people's limitations, and the situational limitations?
Yeah, and I think, and I love the way you kind of break it down into that 3-step framework there. And I think it's really, the big step is chunking it down and kind of normalizing the fear. I mean, every time I get on Google Maps, sometimes if I'm just kind of sitting around, I'll get on Google Maps and start planning routes around the country, and I'm like, these countries are pretty big. This is going to take me quite a while. And it starts to terrify me and think, like, how can I really do this? And ultimately, I've also realized that I don't know when I'll finish or even if I'll finish, but it doesn't matter as much as the journey itself, and taking it one step at a time. So breaking it down into small chunks, it allows me to take the next step forward. So right now I'm just thinking about the next few countries I have planned, and then I'll worry about the ones after that, down the road. And as far as those limiting beliefs in yourself, one thing I talk about and again, I'm big in psychology and neuroscience, is how we have what's called a negativity bias. We have an inclination towards focusing on the negative as opposed to the positive. So we'll do more, and they've done studies that have shown we find less misery in losing $50 than we find joy in gaining $50, So pain is a more powerful motivator, as well as the fact that pain is more consciously in our head. We tend to focus on the negative things in the world. So by acknowledging that reality, I go through self-doubt all the time. I go through doubt, fear, and all that kind of stuff. So acknowledging that reality normalizes it and then allows you to do something with it. So I think that first step is having something to work towards, because without that, ultimately, you're just floating around in the kind of chaos of consciousness, right? So without having something to work towards, there's no, like they say, an idle mind is the devil's playground. There's no direction. There's no there's no reason to shatter those self-limiting beliefs or having something to work towards, you know? So I think it's just about, one, breaking it down into chunks, acknowledging the normality of the human consciousness, that we will go through doubt, we will go through fears, and all those, that the forces of self-critic, because when you perceive it as normal, you can do something about it. Does that make sense?
So true. Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. That makes great sense. In fact, I want to share something that I hope you will find personally inspiring.
Yeah, please.
A friend of mine told me about hearing about a guy in Ireland. He had been in a pub with his buddies, and on a lark, he decided he would try to take a refrigerator all around the country of Ireland. Why? Because refrigerators are there.
Why not?
So he started on this journey, carting a refrigerator across the country. And he got on television shows, he got on radio shows, he had people give him free places to stay, free meals. Everybody thought it was so fun.
Yeah.
It was a vision that not something they wanted to do, but because he wanted to do it and he was passionate about it and he was excited about it, people will buy into your vision.
Exactly.
Don't be afraid to share your vision, no matter how crazy somebody might think it is. I mean, I don't really want to cart a refrigerator all over the States, but hey, it's so cool when somebody else wants to do something that's adventuresome and fun.
Exactly.
And to be able to contribute and be a part of that experience is really rewarding for people. So just recognize that other people benefit when you're successful. And that's the second limiting belief. How do you help people get through those, but who's going to want to hear from me stuff?
Yeah, and again, one, just for first normalizing it and realize there's always people who are going to want to hear from you, and there's always people going to hate you for it. You know, CNN recently wrote an article about my run around the world, and I was curious to see response, and more than probably 60 to 70% of the responses on there were, this guy's an idiot, this is stupid, he's going to die soon, this, that, and the other thing, and I was just shocked, but I was shocked at first, but then I found it just funny, and you got to realize that you're going to have haters. The bigger as you start getting bigger and bigger in terms of just, the reach that you have, you're going to have more people that hate you for it. So you got to embrace your own vision and radiate with just bold and unbridled enthusiasm, and that will give you the reason to keep moving forward. There's hundreds of people doing all kinds of things out there, so it's normal to have that, well, somebody's already done it before, but nobody has your story, nobody has your perspective. And value that perspective. Realize that you have your own unique story to share, and ultimately find that. If you can't think of what that is, do it. Not just the law of attraction, they call it a vision board. And there's a sort of scientific reasoning behind a vision board. But one thing you can also do is also create a sort of a success board, a results board, celebrating all the things that you've achieved in your life, because they have shown that as much as our brains respond to negative forces, we can also condition that to respond to positive forces and activate the parts of the brain so that we get motivated by those positive forces. So then use that to drive us forward. So it's just a matter of conditioning, like anything. You practice long and hard enough, embrace the struggle. I think one of the big things I talk about in the book that I've just written is the idea of embracing suffering, embracing the struggle that's a part of the process. I mean, running across countries is not easy. When I was in Barbados, I got full body heat cramps. Miserably painful. And at the time, I hated it. I was like, why am I doing this thing? But ultimately, right after it was done, that was one of my most rewarding runs because of the pain I had to suffer to accomplish it. So that struggle is the most beautiful part of the journey. It's when you realize that that's what matters. The thing you're most proud of in your life will be the things you worked hardest for, the things you suffered the most for to achieve.
That is so true. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I always like to tell people, every single moment is a blessing. Every single moment. Because it's an opportunity for you to be more capable and more resourceful. Mm-hmm. It's designed to help you learn and grow. So either it's an opportunity for you to practice a skill you already have, mm-hmm. or discover that there's another skill that could really benefit you.
Yeah.
And if anybody is doing something that you think is really cool, that is a sign that you can do it too. If it really matters to you, you can step up and do it too. Because every single person on this planet, every single website, I mean, I'm sorry, the web has it's the ultimate library. You can find anything you need, really. Mm-hmm. And people want you to succeed. The more there are people talking about the same topic, the more people realize, wow, this is important. I need to pay attention. I need to figure this out, and I want to be a part of this. I want to join that community. So don't think that there isn't room if somebody else is already having a conversation. There's definitely room for you, and it's time for you to ask the question, how can I be a little more capable, a little more resourceful, and watch what shows up, because it's just amazing what shows up. Now, we promised we'd talk about 3 things, so I'm going to move us on in the interest of time.
Sure. Please
We're
do.
having too much fun, Akshay. That's the
Of
problem
course.
here. So I wanted to also talk about a simple 3-step process to get from overwhelm into action. And this sounds pretty similar to what you were talking about a little bit earlier, Akshay, but I'd love to have you riff off of this. That's what I love to do with these, is just have that dialogue going. So the first thing I like people to do is first get aware of how you're feeling. I'm getting set to go on a vacation, and it's going to be an awesome, rocking vacation, and I was feeling frustrated. And I had to stop and go, now why am I feeling frustrated? And I realized it's because I love where I live. I love the work I do. I love my life. And every time there's any kind of distraction, even a really good distraction, it really ticks me off. So it's
a
funny,
good problem
but you have to first go,
No,
now
of course.
what's going on here?
Of course.
Why am I feeling this way?
Of course.
And you got to look at what is working in the moment. Because oftentimes, all people want you to do is be there for them. And one of the biggest disconnects is when you show up and it's all about you instead of being all about the person you're talking to. That's one of the biggest barriers to sales. You need to get to know your prospect and what their needs are before you start talking about your stuff. So that's step 2. And then step 3 is, again, how could you be more capable, more resourceful right now? So I think I already did the advanced overview of those 3 steps. But Akshay, what do you think? When you're talking with somebody who's dealing with overwhelm, how do you help them get out of that state of overwhelm?
And I love your 3 steps, and they kind of almost very similar to echo to this tool I created called the LMNOP cycle. So the first step is exactly what you said. It's labeling. So it's kind of, that's the L. L is label your emotion. And Dr. Andrew, I think it was Andrew Newberg, I can't remember his name now, I've done too many research studies in the last few weeks for finishing my book, but there was a scientist, psychologist, who discovered that when you label your emotion, it actually reduces activity in the emotional parts of your brain and increases activity in the parts of your brain associated with focus and awareness. So it immediately what that does is it steps you outside of the impact of that emotion. So often you see when people are angry, we respond without thinking, right? They say, I respond without thinking. So by labeling it, now you step outside of it. You're sort of separating yourself from your brain, if you will. So the first step is label, and the second part of that L is language. So immediately what you do is you shift your body language. And again, the names are just failing me right now, but there was another researcher who came up with what they call power pose. And she has a TED Talk about it, great TED Talk. It'll come to me eventually. But she talks about how shifting your body language actually increases testosterone, and it reduces cortisol. It improves, essentially changes your biology. So just by sitting up, you're now more powerful to take the next step. So label and language. The second step is M, is meaning. What is the meaning you've created to the situation that has led to the emotion? So, in great book, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And essentially what he says is that between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space lies our power to choose our response, and in our response lies our growth and our freedom. And that quote to me is so powerful, because it's just life-changing, because there's no meaning to what these events happening. I could be sitting here thinking that this is just tedious, I hate this, and that's just a meaning I come up with. Or I could come up, this is awesome, I'm having a great time. No matter what, to any situation, we can choose meanings. So you come up with you realize, what is the meaning that I've created to this event or the situation that has led to the emotion? The next step is the N. N is where you say, it's not me, it's my brain. So our brains are stuck in patterns that we're no longer in control of. So essentially what happens, contextual stimuli. So for example, every time I come home from work and it's, let's say, 6 p.m., my brain is going to tell me, if I've been doing this for a while, that, okay, it's time to go to the fridge, open up a beer, kick my feet up, and watch TV, right? So that's your brain stuck in a pattern you're not even consciously aware of. That's why changing habits is so hard. So you got to step outside of that and say, this is not me. It's not me that wants to drink this beer. It's my brain. It's my brain stuck in a pattern that I can't control. And again, neuroscience has also shown that the simple act of moving my hand, my brain registers it like 1/10 of a second before it actually happens. So we're actually far less in control of our brains than we like to think we are. So that's why you do that. You step outside of yourself again. Then the O is opt for a new meaning. This is where you consciously choose a new meaning. So if earlier I believed that, and one of the examples was on a client that used this every time he sat on the computer, he made it mean that people are going to hate his writing and it's going to, nobody's going to want to read it. So you're consciously choosing a new meaning that's saying, no, my writing is awesome. Here's why. Here's all the previous list of successes I've found. And if you don't have any, start choosing them. Here's why I'm awesome, basically. And if it's not fully registering your subconscious yet, that's okay. This is just where you're consciously choosing a new belief. And then the final part is what I call is the P, where you take an action in line with your higher purpose. And that action literally starts to change the wiring in your brain. So now your brain is registered a wiring that, okay, I come home from work, I open up a beer. Instead of doing that, I'm going to go hit the gym. So it's not going to. So next time you come home, it'll still want to go for the beer because that's a pattern. But the more you do this, you're taking action. You're literally changing the wiring in your brain. And the final part of this, kind of the second stage of that P, is what I call preemptive strikes, where you preemptive, and that's why it's a cycle. You preemptively prepare for the next time you know an obstacle is going to come up. So, for example, coming home again, you put your gym bag right when you come home. So now you're preemptively preparing. You know your mind's going to want to go do the easiest thing, so you preemptively prepare for it. And I do this all the time in my life. When I know I'm going to be tired the next day or something, when I do client calls sometimes early in the morning, and if I've been up late writing, I'll put on my running shoes and my running watch and my heart rate monitor before my call. So as soon as the call is done, it's psychologically as easy as possible to go for my run. So I know that was kind of long-winded, but that tool I find to be very powerful. I share with all my clients. So that's a tool that that is similar to your 3 steps as well, and again, all backed by science on how we can kind of get out of old patterns and create new ones.
That is fabulous. So L is for labeling your emotion and changing your body language.
That's correct.
M is for the meaning that you've assigned in the moment. N is it's not me, it's just my brain on repeat.
Yep.
O is I'm going to opt for a new meaning in a conscious manner. And P is I'm going to be on purpose with my actions, and I'm going to prepare ahead so that I can be effective in making progress towards my goals. That's brilliant. I love it.
Thank you.
That is fabulous. Wow.
Thank you.
That was worth the price of admission right there. I got to tell you. So you have really stepped up your game to be able to run across every single country on the planet. That is a pretty big goal, big, hairy, bodacious goal, and I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
So how do you encourage people to embrace those opportunities that really are expansive, that it may be a little hard to get yourself up for it, to get yourself excited about it? What do you encourage people to do to get into that state?
So the first step is, and there's a great book called The Talent Code, where he kind of breaks down what it is that separates the peak performers from everybody else, and how do we all create that peak performance. So one of the steps in that, and I talk about this as well in my book, is ignition. So essentially finding your own path. For me, it was running. And it doesn't have to be for you. There could be anything, right? So whatever it may be, it could be chess, it could be anything. Finding the ignition moments and then consistently inspiring yourself. So this is, every morning I have a whole routine. In fact, I have a routine that I follow on my phone, and part of the routine in the morning and evening is to watch something motivating. So I'll go on YouTube and watch a running video, and this keeps my mind in the game constantly. You were talking about what we surround ourselves with and why we kind of have that I think that limiting belief on what others perceive on us. And the reason is when we turn on the news. This is why I don't watch the news or open the newspaper. We just hear about the world crumbling around us, and if that's all we know, that's what we believe about the world. So instead, I want to surround myself with things that encourage me about the world that I want to live in, regardless of whatever the reality is, because ultimately reality is what we make it out to be, right? So, and a great example of this is Roger Bannister. When he ran the 4-minute mile, after that, 17 people broke what was considered the greatest athletic feat of the century. 17 people broke it in, I think, less than 2 years. How can that many people do it? Because a new belief was created. So surround yourself by those beliefs that you want to create. And then it's ultimately about practice, one, consistently practicing and embracing the boring, the tedious, and the mundane. And that doesn't sound like fun because it's not. But Darren Hardy, he's the publisher of Success Magazine, he says that, I forget the exact quote, but he says something along those lines that the path to success is boring, it's mundane, it's not always going to be fun, and that is something that's hard just to realize, going on runs repeatedly in the same area of my neighborhood to training, it's not always easy, or even going for a 20-mile run, you're just plodding along one foot in front of the other. Skiing across Greenland every day, it's plain white, there's nothing new, you're seeing every single day, and you have to drag a sled for 12 hours a day. And that is boring. It's mundane. It's a struggle, and you really have to embrace that process. It's not easy, and you cannot expect it to be easy. So I think just that setting that expectation that it's not going to be easy is valuable, and then focusing on the end result of what you want to create. So once you have that ignition moment, you surround yourself with inspiration, essentially. That's why vision boards are so valuable. They actually prime. They've again done studies that have shown, taking before a test, if people heard the word stupid, they would be worse on the test than if they heard the word smart. So our brains are primed to respond to our external cues. So essentially, create the external cues that are more conducive to the lifestyle you want to create. And that's a big problem. Most people don't do is because we surround ourselves with the world that tells us how it's all falling apart. So once we hit that ignition, create the external cues, and then ultimately practice through struggle, through hard work, through pain, and embracing the pain. And the hard part about that, again, because it's painful. So that's why I also like to always reward yourself, kind of celebrate the little wins. Every time you get a little win, celebrate that, enjoy it, because that keeps you going. Because otherwise, it can just it's hard. It's hard to keep managing to keep fighting pain, right? So celebrate the little wins, and that again, that reinforces to your brain. It creates, it releases dopamine in the brain, and then it reinforces to your brain that the actions you're taking are heading you in the right direction.
You said so many profound things. I can't even begin to start reiterating exactly what you said. One of the things that I think is so important to remember. People tend to put my physicalities over here, my business is here, my relationships, my personal relationships are over there, my spirituality's up there somewhere. I'll get to that when I have a minute.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's not how that works. It's all integrated. It's all one, and it's all happening at exactly the same time.
Yeah.
And how you feel physically impacts how present you can be mentally. That's why your physical health is so important, to eat healthfully and work out and take care of yourself, because if you don't, those little synapses don't connect real well, and it's hard for you to make the progress you want to make. That said, mind over matter is very true. We've all heard of someone who lifted the car off her child, right?
Yeah.
Some little lady. So you can accomplish incredible things, and the first thing is to realize what you want to do and why it's so important to you, and hold that vision. Now, there's a lot of things that I do to get out of the overwhelm, because it's the whole thing about, first it's managing the fear, and the second thing is maintaining focus.
Yep.
And I know that every time overwhelm is in front of you, it's because you're not maintaining that focus.
Yeah.
So some of the things that I find really, really helpful are to take a break and step back. And a mutual friend of ours, Gillian Goodwin, really got me started on this.
Yeah.
Use the phrase, I'm so happy and grateful that, and fill in the blank. I'm so happy and grateful that I live here, that I'm married to this incredible guy, that I get to do all these wonderful things. I'm so happy and grateful that I am capable, that I am resourceful, that there are tools that can make this easier. Whatever you need to hear, say that in the I'm so happy and grateful that statement. That's number one. It just shifts your mindset, like you were talking about with your LMNOP. It helps you remember that there are a lot of things there that can help you.
Exactly.
And another tool that I do is journaling. Just writing it down is one of the fastest ways, proven in science and neuroscience, to get it out of your head and through the pen onto paper. And once it's out of your head, it stops being quite so distracting.
Yeah.
Now, a brilliant psychologist, Dr. Joan Rosenberg, she's an expert in what's called emotional Pilates, having that emotional strength for profound resilience. She talks about how it takes your body 90 seconds to process an emotion. So you stub your toe and you're thinking, ow, that was not a good idea. It takes 90 seconds for the nerve endings to go all the way up to your brain, and your brain to flush those chemicals back out of your system completely. But you can maintain that frustration, you can maintain anxiety for as long as you want. It's your little brain going, ping, I'm still unhappy, ping, this is really bothering me, ping, I'm going to keep thinking about this.
Yeah.
And that is self-inflicted pain. That's an option, not a mandate. It's called a pity party. We've all been there, okay?
Yep.
And that's fine. We all need it. You have to feel like, darn it.
Yeah.
And you have to acknowledge that.
Yep.
But then you have to decide, okay, time to step it up and be a little more capable and resourceful. And like you said, celebrate your progress, celebrate your wins. I share a tool that I do with an accountability buddy. I've got several different accountability buddies because that's a really effective way to move your business forward fast.
Of course.
So I want to share what I do with Jane. We call it our daily 3. So every day, Monday through Friday, I write an email identifying the 3 wins and accomplishments of the previous day, and I take a stab at the 3 wins and accomplishments for today. Now, we're both overachievers, so we never limit it to 3. It's always a laundry list of things we're going to get done, but we call it the daily 3.
I love it.
I send her that email. She sends me hers. Okay? I get her email, and I get pumped about all the great things Jane's up to. And I send her an email back, and next to each thing she's working on, I rave about what a great job she's doing, how proud I am of her, what a massive difference she's making. I share tools and resources. I introduce her to people that would help benefit her. And I just get so excited about what she's doing. So it gets my energy up, and it's a whole lot easier for me to get up for somebody else than it is to get up for my stuff, because, hey, who am I, right? I'm just doing my usual thing.
Yeah.
Well, then I get the email back from Jane where she's raving about me. And I'm like, who is this person? Who are you? This looks like what I'm doing, but it's amazing how that daily 3 exercise shifts your awareness of what's going on. For one thing, I do a lot of work to support my family. And I used to beat myself up all the time that I wasn't making more progress on some of my goals. But when I realized where my time was going, and I recognized that that was a huge priority for me, no way was I going to give that time away to something else. All of a sudden, I put it into perspective, and I could let that go.
Love it. That's awesome.
I know that you also shared a really cool tool that you've been using that you found incredibly effective. Could you tell us a little bit about this tool? And we'll post a URL below the video too.
Yeah, the tool, because, as you know, like you said, overachievers, we have multiple projects that we're working on in one go, right? So I'm working on my run around the world, my business, I'm doing some other couple of businesses, my book, so numerous different things. So and you gotta be able to manage that, because otherwise there's no focus. And you were talking about that. That's the big thing we're always working on. And you couldn't be more accurate. That every one of my clients is always about focus. So I use a tool called Asana. Asana helps me manage my projects, and then creates, so I have 6 different projects on there, and then I create different actions. You can create sub-actions. So for example, run around the world, I'll have something called expedition planning. Within expedition planning, I'll have X amount of actions. Then I'll have one called sponsorship, X amount of actions, or PR, X amount of actions. So it helps me manage that. Then you can create obviously you set due dates to it. You can look at it per due date. So that really helps me, give me clarity of focus, because without that, the mind, Dr. I forget how to say his name. It's a complicated one, but I think his name is Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. He wrote this great book called Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience. Yeah. Fantastic book. So he talks about how the natural state of the mind is chaos, which is so true. I mean, that's why you try sitting meditating, your mind's going there, right? So you need to, as much as possible, reduce that state of chaos, and by using a tool like Asana, it helps do that. And another one of the tools that I really use, I love embracing technology on my phone, and I track time. There's a time tracking app called A Time Logger, and A Time Logger. Logger. I think that's for. I just switched from iPhone to Samsung, so I'm not sure what it is on the iPhone. I think there's an A tracker on iPhone. But what it allows me to do is to track all my time, and by doing so, then I can ultimately maximize my time. So what I did for a week, I just tracked it, and I saw, okay, here's where my time is going. I noticed I'm spending too much time doing this, and just tracking it. And it's hard to build that habit. Now that I built it, I mean, I'm tracking just the time that we're having this. I'm tracking it, and after I'm done, I'll hit stop and then track the next thing that I'm about to go do. And then it allows me to direct my time. So first, knowing where the time is going, because mostly, as we know, we operate from a subconscious place. Most of what we do, I think up to even 75 to 90%, depending on the researchers, have shown is just operating automatically, just out of habit, just that pattern, right? So let's become more conscious about it, then in order to direct where we go. And actually, I just realized that by doing this, I actually shaved off 6 minutes, and this sounds crazy, but follow the stream here. I shaved 6 minutes of making my morning smoothie. And what I calculated, that's 6 minutes a day, by actually setting disciplines and calculating how much time I take to do it, and then making it more efficient, I ultimately save up to 6 months at the end of my life. At the end, that 6 minutes adds up to about 6 months of extra life that I've given myself. by just tracking my time, seeing how I could then make it more efficient, and then, adapting accordingly. So Asana and time tracking app, I use a time logger, whichever one you use, are invaluable. I've just saved 6 months of my life just by making my morning smoothie 6 minutes faster. So think about all the potential from that,
Wow,
Yeah.
you are such an inspiration.
Thank you.
Brilliant,
Learning, constantly learning.
Well, I hope you have enjoyed this conversation with Akshay Nanavati as much as I have. I want to make sure that you visit his website too, because Akshay's got some amazing information for you. Make sure you go to existingtoliving.com, and when you opt in, Akshay will share a number of different tools that he uses to help you manage that fear and maintain focus. This is Elaine Starling. Thank you so much for joining us today. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.